If you're a fan of the Bretonnian faction for Warhammer 3, have you ever felt like there's just not a lot of variety in the gameplay? Like, the number of units you have access to just aren't that interesting, and for the most part, they just get replaced as you get farther into a campaign? Have you felt like the faction's been largely forgotten about, maybe on the actual tabletop, and also in Warhammer 3? Bretonnia, they moved one of the lords to the far south, and that's kinda it. Oh, and they threw one into the Thunderdome. The last update that we got that was substantial added Réponse de Lioness and her unique mechanics with the desert mechanics, her unique starting position, and 2 unique heroes, her and Massif. But there's gotta be more to it, right? Well, there totally can be if you're willing to install some mods. So today, we're gonna be talking about a series of mods that I've been cobbling together and testing out, and I really dig them, that act like an expansion pack for my favorite faction. So grab your sword, mount up, and let's ride for the lady. The first mod we're gonna talk about is one that was on the front page about a week ago. It's pretty substantial, and it is one of the funnest names to say. Bertrand the Brigand and the Bowmen of Bergerac. This is a mod that adds the hero, Bertrand. He's literally Robin Hood, at least the Warhammer equivalent of it, who offers up not only one new hero, but also a few of his merry men that go along with him, which play out as heroes. That would be Gael le Gros, Hugo le Petit, I hope I'm saying these right, they're French, and the Bowmen of Bergerac. These are Bertrand's personally trained bowmen. They count as merry men for the campaign buffs and have a free upkeep if you've got Bertrand in the army after getting the correct skill. This mod gives us a new building and build tree to go down. We get light infantry that are pretty quick and can do decent damage. It gives us more variety in the early game. We also get units like the Brigand Waylayers, which are fast polearm infantry unit that can stalk and use the Waylaid, which means that they get a enemy defense debuff. We get Brigand Flayers, which are fast dual sword infantry, fairly different from anything else that we've seen as Bretonnian. They're anti-infantry, they're armor-piercing, and they also have stock. And the Aspirant Hoods, which are elite ranged melee hybrid units that have a bit more health, but their actual numbers are quite small, but they also get an area of attack. The heroes that we get, Bertrand the Brigand, the leader of the Merry Men, has his incredible bow with a bunch of abilities that you can unlock a custom skill tree. Then you get all of his compatriots, his companions. You can also recruit the Crownless Lord, who comes in 2 different flavors. They work like the Faceless Hero. Here they are on screen now. At level 12, they also get a horse. You get the bow version and the greatsword version, each with different skill trees, and that means different abilities. Included in the mod that I'm linking in the description below is the mod author's other 2 mods, the Bretonnian Brigands and the Bretonnian Friar, which I think is very cool because it gives you a unit that you can train from the Grail Shrine. He gives aura buffs to your units in the nearby area, but he's got very little in the way of armor, so try to keep him out of the fight. Though I say that, he does have melee capability. And he gets plus 20 physical resistance out the gate, so that's a thing. And he gets health regeneration. One other thing that the Friar does that is quite nice as you get the heavier infantry that take longer to replenish is troop replenishment for campaign, if you want to add one of these to your army. For the Bretonnian Brigands that are built into this mod, and if you want these separately away from the heroes, you can totally do that. He does have that mod put out, and I'll put a link in the description as well. The Bretonnian Brigands come with the same dual-wielding infantry, bonus versus infantry, but you also get new cavalry, Brigand Raiders. They're dual-wielding sword cav units that get a bonus for infantry, and they are much faster than what you're used to. You also, for the first time, get crossbowmen for Bretonnia. Then you get 2 different versions of the Hermolts, I hope that's how you say that. Both of these are archer units. One of them is the Chasseurs, which are gonna be your mounted version. They can fire while moving, they've got decent melee, and they've got their bow, but they come with a lower unit count, so keep that in mind. All of these can be built at the Brigand camp in the campaign as you get down the tree. If you build it, it actually costs Chivalry to build, which is a cool little mix-up, which is a cool way to mix it into the base mechanics of Bretonnia. Do you want to have a bunch of thieves and robbers in part of your army or as a separate army harassing the enemy? Then, well, you're gonna have to sacrifice some of your chivalric deeds to have these thieves' camps in some of your towns. I would love it if the heroes could use the ambush stance if you have them running the army and not lose chivalry, as the knights don't know what these guys are doing, but at the moment, I don't think that works. That's not a mechanic that they can actually implement. Next mod on the list is not nearly as impactful into the game as the others, but still pretty damn cool. It's the Land of Chivalry Grail Beasts. This mod gives us a unique character model for Henry le Massif, the massive paladin that is crusading with Réponse de Lioness down in the Southlands. It's the hero that you start with if you start with that faction. It also changes his portrait, heraldry. Réponse now gets her unique mount from the second game. And if you're playing as the Fey Enchantress, you get access to, and I hope I say this right, the Paragons of Lilise. Lilise is a new recruitable unit from Carcassion's landmark building, if you build it. The final and I think most impressive part of this is, and this actually had me diving into the lore a little bit more, is Albrecht de Bordelot's custom head model that matches with the lore for the character more. Apparently, he's been so busy kicking ass and taking names from Bretonnia that he hasn't had a chance to go on his Grail quest. He's constantly being either besieged or something happens like his father dies and he has to take over the kingdom, and it stops him from doing his Grail quest, meaning he is aging like a normal person. He's also freaking old, and yet still kicking the crap out of the undead, or the orcs, whoever roams into his territory. And this makes him match more like the Manan-worshipping badass that he is. He does look like he just stepped off a sailing vessel. Now, if you're gonna talk about Bretonnian mods, then you have to look at Lily's workshop page, because there are an absolute ton of them, and I can tell we're both fellow Bretonnian players because I love all of these mods. There's so many in here that are quite cool, but the ones that I'm gonna talk about are the ones that kind of make this whole thing work, which are the new units for Bretonnia. First up in the multiple mods that we're gonna discuss are the Foot Grail Knights. Foot Grail Knights and Foot Grail Knights with great weapons, and those are Warhammers. These are the tier 3 infantry that will be holding the line for you. These are exactly what they sound like. They're dismounted knights working as a single unit on the ground, ready to hold out. And sure, they might not have the armor of, say, some of the mid-tier dwarves, but who does? They do have all of the fun perks that Grail Knights get. I love that the Grail Knight Great Weapon hammers are actually considered armor piercing. In reality, they're probably more like armor crushing, but whatever. And since they're Grail Knights, they're immune to psychology. Now, these are just a benefit or a bonus to what actually comes from Lily's main pack, which is the Bretonnian Overhaul Definitive Edition. So you're gonna want this big pack, and then those two units we just talked about are gonna be just bonuses that get added to it. That's your tier 3 though. First off, let's talk about new units. You get the Royal Men-at-Arms. These are gonna be a new unit for your tier 2 infantry that have a unit capped and are produced at the barracks. They're armed with shields and spears. They're able to take more of a direct charge, and they can dish out more damage than regular spearmen, but you're gonna be limited on how many you can build. They're relatively cheap for their output, and with the stuff we're gonna talk about later, can be enhanced with later technologies. Another version of the Men-at-Arms are the Longbow Men-at-Arms. They have a sweet helmet as well. These tier 2 ranged infantry are armed with their longbows, and they can use fire arrows. If they happen to get into a scuffle, they've got higher melee stats than your traditional peasants. They have higher leadership, better health and armor, but you lose out on some of the ammunition, so they're not gonna be able to hold out for as long firing off arrows. And if you've ever played Bretonnia and find that your archer line is just getting decimated because somebody has anything that's ranged, it is nice to have something with a little bit of armor and a little bit of survivability if you're willing to pay for the extra fee. Problem being, though, is the restrictive unit cap, which makes them fun to field for one army if you want to really stack them. There are some stuff that you can do to break those limits. You can get more if you build more barracks, meaning it feels great to have a larger empire as you're fielding more better units. Or you play as the king. Apparently he gets some stats that give him more. On top of the 2 new units, you get 17 new technology to research that will improve your foot squires and men-at-arms with technologies such as warden, banner carrier, expert blacksmiths, and heavier armor. On top of the overhaul, you also get a rebalanced economy. All the original men-at-arms units have been brought back a bit to reduce their upkeep cost, as well as you can recruit them at an earlier tier. There's been some changes to the dilemma events that fit more into the lore. Each of your lords, heroes, and legendary lords now have the opportunity to get into 8 new skills that have been added. Lily's redesigned the traits for each faction, which I haven't had a chance to play through all of them yet, so I'm still getting to know them as I'm playing through my own campaign, learning about the new units. And one of the things that I really like is that they've added +3 peasants to the peasant economy if you go through industry, because so far I've never had a real reason to go industry. Yes, you get a little bit more for gold, but you can just go farming. It builds faster and cheaper, so I hope this video was entertaining and useful for you, and I hope you have good luck on your own Bretonnian campaign as you play through. Check out the mods. Thank you, mod authors, for making such cool content. And everybody who's watched the video, thank you for sticking around. I will see you all next time.
Rejoice, for we, the Knights of Bretonnia, will be your